Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and very good morning to everyone. Before we start the program, please allow me to announce a safety briefing for this facility at Dewan Silaturahim Pusat Belia, Bandar Seri Begawan. For your information, there is no scheduled fire drill or emergency will be done today. If you hear the emergency bell ring, this is an indication that an actual emergency is in progress. For your safety, please remain calm and do not panic. There are 4 doors in this hall as indicated by the green exit sign. Please exit from the doors to the flight of stairs and walk in a calm manner. The meeting point at the car park, which is located across the main road behind the Townhall building. If you need assistance, please inform the Busan staff or the Youth Townhall committee. As the COVID-19 pandemic is still at large, you are to comply with all regulations and guidelines as set by the Ministry of Health, which includes but not limited to practicing social distancing, high standard of hygiene, to wear face masks or self-distance as we are not feeling well. If you have not already done so, you are reminded to scan the Brunei QR code as displayed at the stairwell before entering the facility. Your safety is our responsibility together. Thank you. Yang berhormat, members of the Legislative Council of Brunei Darussalam, young leaders who are attending virtually and physically today at Busan Belia, colleagues and friends, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and good morning. Welcome to the Youth Townhall in conjunction with the National Youth Day Celebration 2020, held over 2 half-day morning sessions over today and tomorrow, both physically at Dewan Silaturahim Pusat Belia Bandar Seri Begawan and virtually joining us via Zoom today. Before we start today's event, I'd like to invite Yang Mulia Muhammad Mahdi Haji Zaini to recite Surah Al-Fatihah to today's event.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا
Ameen, 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 Ya Rabbal Alameen. Ladies and gentlemen, we heard you. In response to 2 youth roundtables hosted in July and August of 2020, attended by over 70 participants that showed a diversion of thoughts, where on one hand, some youth viewed that the know-how or platform need to be improved or to be more accessible to other youth, while on the other hand, mindset and other assumed roadblocks are miring our youth from feeling that they can contribute. Additionally, there are existing skepticism among youth who view the general community does not talk but lacks of follow-up action. Having said that, the inaugural Youth Townhall is a platform designed to inculcate a solution-driven and positive youth community who are passionate about contributing to our national development. With the theme, Unlocking the Power of Young People, these sessions aim to develop youth leaders who want to proactively contribute to our national aspirations, led by example and inspire others to do the same. The event will be focusing on 2 topics. Today, we'll be focusing on meeting national aspiration, youth as future ready agents of change today. And for tomorrow, NGOs and community youth leaders leading for national development. This event is co-organized by the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sports, the Young Professionals Network Brunei, and the Creative Core BN, in conjunction with the annual National Youth Day celebration. For those who are watching us from the comfort of your own home or wherever you may be, apologies from us if you may experience any lag or other technical difficulties. We'll try our best to update our Facebook page. Ladies and gentlemen, before we start, the format of this session is as follows. A facilitated session by 2 facilitators who will engage with the participants and the speakers, mentors, consisting of panels from diverse backgrounds and experiences. Participants will be regularly invited and encouraged to raise thoughts, comments, feedbacks, and recommendations related to the topic throughout the session, and you may ask questions appropriately. The other aim of the town hall is not to respond to questions by participants, but rather be listening more to you. The speakers or mentors are there to add their thoughts on the topic, while the facilitators will be keeping the session relevant by connecting the dots. Introducing our co-facilitators for today, Yang Mulia Spa Muhammad Sam of Young Professionals Network Brunei, and Yang Mulia Dr. Iskandar Hasnan from the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport to start the event today. I'll now pass the floor to the co-facilitators. Thank you.
Thank you very much, AJ. Sedang listed sama ada semua
Yeah, thank you, AJ.
Going abroad, okay. This COVID-19 will still disappear, inshallah. But I would like to say thank you very much, everyone, for coming today. And I know it's Saturday morning. Actually, it's our for the youth of the country. So thank you very much for the introduction today. Yeah, I'll be working alongside with my colleague Aspa. She's there, managing the
Questions on Slido, yeah.
Slido. Just to reiterate from our today, our topic for today is meeting national aspiration, youth as future ready. Right? With me today, we have 5 speakers. The first speaker will be Jeremy, our Administrative Officer, Grade 1, Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport. Our colleague from RB, Yusuf Sidik, Vice President Information Technology, Brunei. Our friend from Brunei Shell Petroleum, Puan Zainab Omar, HR Director, and our colleagues from the Singapore High Commission, Ashish, Second Secretary, and the final speaker is Wan Nurul Nazira Muhammad Zainal Abidin, founder of Manchester. Thank you very much, everyone, for accepting our invitation. I know we'll have a 2-hour session, but we hope to have a productive session for today, especially with our youth, young analysts today. Just to inform everyone that I'll be using bilingual, and also for the benefit of all, that siapa yang akan bertanya ada slider di depan dan the speaker will see the questions. Now they assist by ASPA for giving opportunity for our friends yang di sini attending this event today. Alright then, let's move on to the first question today. Instead of me directing the question to the speakers at the end, so divide the question today to the speakers today. I'll ask the audience the first question, right?
Yeah.
Right? So, the first question is, we would like to be a little informal with this event today. Alright? The first question to all of you in this room. What does it mean to be future ready? Anyone? Ada?
Yeah, the mic is here.
Yeah, the mic is there. So, anyone wants to know, wants to answer? What does it mean to be future ready?
Yeah.
Karina, ask for more microphone and mixer. Alright, boleh bagi panas deh.
Yeah.
Pendapat
Yeah. Why not, right? What does it mean?
What does it mean to be future ready? Yeah.
Okay.
Assalamualaikum. Good morning, everyone.
So, just get the question, what does it mean to be future ready? I would think it's to not to be prepared, but more to see what you cannot see on things and take that leap of faith for whatever you're facing. Because future ready, you can never be ready, you can never get ready the future for you, but you have to be ready for the future. And what does ready mean? It means a lot of things. So you just like taking that leap of faith, and at the same time you just push yourself to the limit until you just make things happen as you go along. At the same time also, from the last statement that I put, you adapt as you go along. So you don't just, you don't just be there and hope for the best. Like for example, you have in the government sector, private sector, for example. But if your risky brings you to other places like entrepreneurship,
doing adaptations as you go along. So that's what I think in essence what future ready means.
Thank you very much, YB. Anyone else? Delegate? From this side, maybe? Yeah. So anyone? That? Okay, let's move on to the speaker then. All right then, let's ask this question to Faik. Okay, Faik, ready?
Thank you, Dr. Iskandar. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Very good morning, Muhammad and Kundara, fellow participants. For due respect, thank you so much for coming along for this morning. On behalf of the Leadership College of Sports, I'd like to thank you very much. We really appreciate you being here. It means a lot to us and to the organizers. Introduce myself, Stefan. So my name is Faik Rani. I work at the Leadership College of Sports as an admin officer. I'm just sharing with you, I'm still 17 years old. 10 years experience. But I'll be 18 this year. Just answer the question about ready. So I wrote here some notes. So in the most practical terms, I think being future ready is a way of thinking. It is also a kind of wisdom. I think to be future ready is to be able to adapt, not just adapt, but to be able to respond to whatever situation comes to you. And that's just like what Yaswani said. When we say future, the first thing that we think about is uncertainty. So we don't know what's going to happen. So I think there's two things. One thing is to maximize the opportunities that will come that we don't know yet. And the second thing is being able to respond to challenges that will come. And I think the second part is much more important. And I think if I just may add, I don't know how I may add, I think being future also means it's not just about looking forward. I think we can say that we can see individuals now and from before who are future ready for their time. So how were they future ready for their time? And how did they take on the challenges of their time? So I think we can say that we're not alone. We're standing with friends. We can see people who came before, they were future ready before. And I think it's all about perception, directing your action, and having the discipline to go forward and to take things as they are. So I think that's what future ready is all about.
Thank you very much, Faik. Let's move on to your question.
Thank you. Assalamualaikum yang berhormat, and first and foremost, thank you for the organizing committee to actually invite me here today. Yes, it is my off day, so that's why I can spend a lot of time here today, not a problem. Okay, it's good to see all of you here, today. 57 years ago, I was also a youth, like that. So that tells you I'm 57 years old, and I've been working in the oil and gas industry for about 57 years. So I would like to try and take this more simply in the sense of ready. So when you say future, it's always about, so it's not about looking backward, it's about looking ahead. However, you have to be mindful of the fact, when you're talking about getting ready to become future ready, you must always learn from the past and whatever is in the present. That's important. And the other thing is, for those people who are future ready, the word ready, why did they mention about it? Not simply about preparedness, it's about agility for you to adapt. It's about having the foresight to always be one step ahead of your competition and the landscape. Now, having said that, you need to also, in today's very digitally savvy world, you need to also be mindful of the fact that not only get connected locally, but also globally. Because if you don't do that, in the current really connected world, you will not be in the what we call future ready state. So I'll leave it at that, because if I do everything, my colleagues don't have anything much to say, right? So I'll pass it to the next person.
Thank you very much, Juan.
Yes.
You know what? Our concern representative speaker to come here 2 hours before the event. She was here looking at everyone. Was like, yeah, I want to be the point. Okay, it's my habit. Right. That's future ready. So yeah, right. Okay. Now let's move on to Juan Nuro.
Hi, I'm Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. YB, and everyone here. Thank you again to the organizing committee for inviting me. It's such an honor to represent Benchland here. I guess for we have the webinar, Benchland, we're still sharing platform. It started off as my hobby. It's a passion. The reason I created Benchland initially is because I came back from the US after studying. Back, there's nothing for me. As a youth, I felt that why is it such right? And I feel that maybe there's something that I can do about this. So I was inspired by my experience back in the US, where lifelong learning is a culture. People would take weekends as an opportunity to upskill or reskill. And I felt, coming from a microbiology background, I actually felt, I saw this as a lab. The world is a lab, and hence the name is inspired by the whole experience where I see learning on weekends as an opportunity for me to figure out what am I good at. And if I'm good at it, I'm going to improve my way and go all the way in that particular skill. So I want to bring that kind of experience back in Brunei. Okay, going back to defining future ready, in my definition, I felt that it's more about, it's true, like what everybody has said earlier, it's more about adaptability. But I think we commonly use this word adaptability and being prepared for the future in the context of being well prepared in terms of education, work experience, and training. I feel that we largely the importance of psychological resilience or grit. And to become a future-ready youth, we also have to nurture our grit. And how do we do that? I guess we can use the rest of our time to discuss that. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. All right, well, good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me here. I'm actually from the Singapore High Commission, so I'm a foreigner in the midst. Family keeps calling it Spanish. It was an invisible family. So what is security? I think the one that very well was just said is I think it's mostly a state of mind, actually. And it consists of holding two slightly contradictory attitudes. One is consists of being very ambitious and really loving what you're doing, but also admitting that that might not be what you get to do for the rest of your life. And this is going to change. Right? So you have a job, you love your job, but you also tell yourself tomorrow this company might not be today. And I might have to go work in a different company, in a different industry. Right? And I think this is just how the market today is, especially if you're in the private sector. And I think it's kind of a pity because the old model of how you would find a job was that you graduate from university, you would have an entry-level position, and then you stay there until you are 60 and you retire with a good pension. But that's just not going to happen anymore. Right? So in the past, people could live their entire life without figuring out what they do. Maybe you just happen to study accounting, so you die having done nothing but accounting your entire life. But I think the market right now is not structured that you have that luxury. And you're going to have to eventually find a way to what you really love and what you really love. So that's why I think future ready is.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hi everyone, and once again, thanks everyone, YPM especially for inviting me. Such an honor. Now being future ready, it's been hard. It's hard being the last speaker because everyone's basically taken points off me. But again, to echo to what the others have said earlier, I think I'm doing the summarizing job here. Is being open to change. Now, I've always been quite vocal to point out that the challenge that our youth, every youth right now faces, is that once you enter university, so let's say this is your first year, by the time he or she graduates from university, your skill might not be relevant anymore. Let's face it that way, yeah? It's just a fact of life. So when I first entered university, and it wasn't that long ago, cybersecurity was a big thing. And in the first 3, 4, 5 years of my career, I spent it on cybersecurity. I learned during the job. I learned on the job. And I think, no one has a crystal ball, no one can predict the future, but it's the ability to be open to change. I firmly believe we're in the middle of a second .com bubble right now. So if you look at in the year 2000, 1999, early 2000s, you look at companies like Netscape, Amazon version 1, where Amazon was a bookstore. You look at in the mid 2000s when Facebook, Friendster, or whatever social media created. Now you see companies like Facebook, Amazon, the giant, the biggest company in the world, Apple, Facebook, has seen Tesla, has seen unprecedented growth in the past 24 months, especially in the past 6 months. How do you adapt to that? If you look at just in Brunei, most of the vacancies are in technology. I don't want to say IT here. I don't want to say IT technician, IT software engineer, whatever it is. It's data analyst, technology. Technology can be anything from the laptop, software, technology in cars, technology in the kitchen, technology in smart devices, technology in internet things, everything. So the question is, and I guess that's what I was discussing it, is how do you adapt to that? And a lot of the speakers here have pointed out and already given out pointers. Again, it's open to change. I like what much Nero was mentioning about spending your weekends learning. And platforms like this are perfect to not maybe learn, but to land and asking, being passionately curious, the right questions. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So, the thing about technology, you mentioned about, she mentioned about the state of mind, and the sense of being able to adapt when technology just, challenges everything. I just want to ask you, Yusuf, because the second question is connected with technology. We're already aware that we're using
Iskandar.
intelligence and everything. The question now, in your views, can technology replace us in the future?
Thanks, Doctor. Very good question, and I think there's a lot of the discussion has been repeated more and more so over the past 12 months, 24 months. Can AI replace humans? And we've seen models of robots doing basic, monotonous, routine activities that humans can do. I'm not going to answer that question directly, but let me just ask this question: is that why are we asking that question now? Why are we talking about AI now? Because suddenly AI wasn't a thing 5 years ago. There wasn't such a thing as artificial intelligence. If you think about it, it's quite perplexing because the technology behind artificial intelligence was there for 2 decades. It's basically code running in the background. So what you have to think about that, right? Back in the early 2000s, people were to scale back further, probably in the early 90s, people were asking the same question about the internet. What's going to happen? The world's going to be so connected. Jobs are going to be lost. Traditional jobs are going to be lost, right? The mailing industry might die. How are we going to replace it? Now, and I'd like to point towards history instead of future, if I may here for a moment. There are very important lessons to be learned from the past 20, 30 years. The only difference that I feel between then and now is the cycle of change has gotten smaller and smaller and smaller. So if you look at the changes that was there back in the 1800s, when you talk about the first and second industrial revolution, it took a century. And you talk about the 1940s, 1960s, a lot of technology advancements happened. Talk about the 90s, late 90s, 2000s, internet. Yeah? And now we're leveraging on data, we're leveraging all the technology that has matured over the past few centuries and few decades. And now we're talking about AI. Will it eventually replace humans? Now, I think the main thing to realize here is to ask yourself, how are we going to get to that stage where AI can replace humans? I think that's the first concern. Personally, I don't think AI will replace humans. There's absolutely no way. When the term AI first came out 5, 6 years ago, it was a fad. People wanted to get into AI. People wanted to grow. People wanted to talk about skills to develop AI. It's the same like blockchain. When blockchain came out 2, 3 years ago, it was so hot. People learned about blockchain. But what's missing here, everyone, is the ability to develop an idea, to develop AI, and turn it into something usable, a real life use case scenario to benefit the society, to benefit the country. So if you can give me one AI solution right now, can anyone give me one AI product that you're familiar with? Can anyone actually say that? Alexa, which is good. Alexa, and you have Cortana here, and you have Blue Health. Now, unpopular opinion is that I'm not fully convinced that. So what's AI? Is there a stage of a program or code application that suddenly says this is AI, this is a normal app? I don't think we'll get to that stage where something is fully AI. AI is only able to learn patterns, is able to learn input, is only able to learn clean data, whatever humans needed. Right? And one again needs to ask themselves, how can I make this collection of technology, how can I apply it in real life to make lives better? And it's not about just creating an app. You have a problem creating an app. That was a big thing 2-3 years ago, and it still is now. Let's try and take a step further. To be honest, I think it's not only just about AI, but technology in the next 5 to 10 years will be ubiquitous, meaning it will be all around you. If you think about AI in my laptop now, in your phone, Siri, it's not an app. It's an ability. It listens to you. And when people say Facebook, WhatsApp listens to you, it's true. It's true. Yeah. It's a simple thing that I want everyone to do this when after the session is, if you have the Google Mail, go to Google Mail, go to settings. There is a setting that I forgot which tab was it in. You'll be able to track your location. You'll be able to go there and see where you've been. And it's just from Google Mail. Yeah. Again, how can we leverage that kind of technology and how can we equip ourselves better to provide for that technology? But I'm digressing here. But back to the main question, no, I don't think so. Thanks. Okay. Thank you very much, Yusuf, for the insight.
I think I want to invite, maybe one sign up here.
So this is something that I'm very passionate about because post-school time. So people always ask me the question. So what do you think? So I'm going to digress into when you talk about AI, when it actually manifests itself into robotics. So it's this way. Now, I always believe that no matter how intelligent, no matter how clever it is, it will never be able to replace human being because the power of reasoning in human being cannot be emulated totally within the AI, whatever space and scale it is. However, I also would like to actually find out if there is some logic to my belief. So I did a lot of research on this because a lot of people ask me questions. So I come prepared, So I have some information for you here. So under UNESCO, there is COMAST. In COMAST, it says it's a world commission on the ethics of scientific knowledge and technology. So they have an ethical code of conduct for robotics technology. And it clearly stated that it will never replace human being. So I feel very comfortable when I found this information, There are a lot of things in here, but simply put, these are all youngsters in the room, so I want to make you know. Do you know this film sequels, Robocop?
Yeah.
Thank you. So, it doesn't matter whether it's the new one or it's the old one, they have the same concept. Do you remember what the Robocop says to the human being when they were really scared of it? Therefore, principle. Remember?
Yeah.
And those actually come from Thomas. It's not filmmaking, it's real. So let me just read one of it, okay? So the robotic laws. This is a law, ethical law for robots. It says a robot may not injure a human being, or through inaction allow a human being to come to harm. You remember this in Robocop? Remember this?
I know, but also.
iRobot as well, so anything to be robotic. So this is what's happening, you know. So when I read this whole principle of ethical code for robotics, hey man, I'm realized they will never replace human being. There, I rest my case.
Thank you very much, Juan. Anyone else? Yeah. Yeah.
Perhaps after Ashish, we can open the floor.
Right.
So, I think there are two very basic limitations to what AI can do. I think the first is AI cannot motivate action, and it cannot tell you what values to adopt. Right? Let's say you're a government, you're trying to figure out if you should lower your taxes on companies. If you lower taxes on companies, more companies will come in, and the country will be richer. But inequality is going to go up. What do you value more? Do you want to increase the general wealth of the entire country, or do you think, even if you don't make everyone as rich as they can, we want to keep inequality down? A very basic question which every society faces. There's no way AI can tell you the answer. And all the laws, all the rules which we give AI are rules which we create. But even then there's a problem, because to take an example of the laws of robotics, there are some very famous laws like this out there trying to train which humans have to solve. Take the first law. A robot cannot harm a human being, or through inaction allow a human being to come to harm. So if there's a bus, let's say it's lost control on the road, it's about to crash into 10 kids who are going to school. Should a robot push a passerby, to kill that one passerby by sacrificing them in front of the bus to save the other 10? Because through inaction, you cannot allow human beings to come to harm. If the robot doesn't do anything, then the robot's letting people come to harm, and not murdering that one person. So basic questions like this, what do we value? Do we value 10 lives? Do we value that one life? And should we act to harm the person or not? That all these questions, we are the ones who have to decide. That's the first, I think, basic limitation. The second limitation is that AI can only deal with very specific kinds of problems, which are very narrowly defined. Now, within that narrow area, they are obscenely powerful, right? My handphone, if I start running my chess app on it will beat the world champion. We know this. For about 6 years, any cell phone is stronger than the world champion in chess. But that's because chess has very defined rules and a very, very small space for possibilities to happen. But if I ask an AI a bigger question, with lots of data, it's just messy, just unfair. Actually, some even very basic questions, like China and US, are they in a new Cold War? Who knows, right? How is an AI even supposed to answer that? I think in 2012, Google had an AI. It looked at 10 million YouTube thumbnails, and after looking at 10 million YouTube thumbnails, it could identify a picture of a cat with 75% accuracy. This is something a 4-year-old can do. A human 4-year-old can do after 5 minutes. Why? It's because for all these talk about AI's incredible power, our brains are still wired to do lots of things which AI, even today, find so difficult to do. All those security tests, I am not a robot. When they go on websites, click, these nice pictures, find the phone which is a car inside the room. If an AI is so powerful, what? AI doesn't know what a car is it? Well, of course, an AI can know what a car is, but it's not programmed to think visually or really. Right? So that's why I think there's still lots of areas where we have an edge. Cyber overlords in the future, sorry.
All right, thank you very much. I think let's go to us, Fatima. Yeah.
The floor.
Huh?
We open this to
Yeah.
the floor. Yeah.
We're going to open up the question and the floor now. Concern on in regards with the question. What are the ideas on it? Yeah, the feedbacks on it. We welcome your views now. What to contribute to the discussion.
We do have some comments on Slido, but it's moving away from what we're talking about.
Yeah, I think we're focusing too much on the technology now.
Yeah.
We're going to move to other sectors, so we need to be inclusive during our discussion. Yeah. So maybe, what's the question?
It's not a question, it's more of a comment. I think this is for Puan Zainab. We have Sin Ying on Slido, and she's saying that we talked about future ready earlier, and she felt that to be future ready, it's not easy. It's very challenging, and that many young people, young professionals are not certain what career path they should, they should take and what it would look like. So if there's anything you'd like to add to that.
Thank you as well for that question from the online audience. Basically, as the panel speaker has mentioned earlier on, when we were talking about future ready, there's a lot of element that goes into it, right? Indeed, you cannot predict what's coming in the future. However, history shows us that things tend to repeat itself as well. But in the areas of AI and everything else, we'll leave it aside. But as for how do you actually keep yourself up to be a future-ready individual? So there's certain characteristics that will never die with time. This is very inherent in us. So don't forget, when you talk about future-ready, it's about technology, it's about trying to be keeping abreast of AI or whatever it may be. But what about yourself as an individual? What are the inherent qualities that you have in you that you can keep on upskilling to make yourself always ready and agile to be adaptable to whatever is required in the future? For example, courage. How many people are courageous enough to speak out their mind, for example? Respectfully. And then you talk about resilience, about psychological resilience. Resilience is one of the key things that organization, well, especially in the oil and gas industry, this is a very highly pressurized environment. People are expected to do more, and it's really changing every day. So resilience is very important for us, especially in the mental space. So we talk about if an individual has resilience, it actually gives you the ability to think on your feet, perseverance. You can actually go and ride along any rough tides, and that actually put you in good state to go into the future challenges. And we talk about being able to take risks as well. Because when you're taking risks, you are actually opening doors of opportunity for yourself. You are telling yourself, hey, myself, do not stay in the comfort zone. What are the things outside there that I can comfortably or uncomfortably take a risk on? Now, how many of you today actually think that way? And we in the organization, especially Brunei Shell Petroleum and Shell globally, we look for individuals who are actually having this what we call learner's mindset. Someone who is really courageous to step into a new zone without knowing all the facts. Beauty is always there, but having the courage to do that. These are inherent qualities you must have. You can build on it. It's something that you can practice on, you can upskill on. And I personally, when I joined 37 years ago, I don't have that high of courage. I joined right at the bottom of the organization with my O levels. And today I'm the director in the company. I'm one of the top leaders in the organization. Not because I have my, O level at that time. No, it's because I personally decided to step out of my comfort zone. So that is very critical. That the inherent values that you have. Don't just stay in the comfort zone. You may have a degree in human resource, but suddenly something else come up and you can't use your degree. For example, you said something very similar, microbiology or whatever it may be, there's no opportunity. What is the opportunity available? Look at that space and see what can you do to narrow your gaps and try to see, if it means you go for night classes, go for it. That's what I did. That is like 37 years ago, I decided to go for night classes. The government was very kind. We have O-level, A-levels, night classes. I went there, managed to get my degree, the company sponsored me. But this is all about resilience. So resilient, top 500 Fortune companies. The CEO was interviewed by Harvard Business Review. And they said the one criteria they really look for individuals which will never die with time is resilience. And a lot of youth today do not have resilience. They try once, twice, thrice, they don't. That's what I say.
Right, thank you very much, Juan.
Iskandar, hold on, yeah. But while we're talking about reskilling and upskilling, right? And before you pass perhaps the mic to the participants in the room, also from Sinying, she said that now we do a lot of reskilling, upskilling, and the communities are really growing. So, sorry, the question is, there you are. Okay, so she was saying that what else can be done to support these growing communities? So who can actually step forward to help these youth after they're done with upskilling and scaling? What's next? Yeah, maybe.
Thank you. I think first of all, to echo what Juan was saying, I think there's some values that are timeless. I think there's some things that simply don't change. I think it's all about, as I said before, it's all about just reflecting on what the panelists said, it's all about finding a balance. So you're really driven to find something, also balancing with the discipline to face hard facts. The discipline to, okay, it is what it is, okay, that's the situation, let's have to deal with it. That's the discipline. Because anything that happens must have a challenge. Because that's already a given, right? So linking that to the question, what can be done? I think what the government is doing now, we are in the direction where we are giving platforms. So platforms like these, platforms like physical platforms like Pusat Belia in other districts. So these are physical platforms that we're given. We're also giving support in terms of monetary support for youths who are able to, for youths to do the projects if they submit their proposals. So I think who can support is the government. I think see the government as the body that will help individuals. Government is no longer a top-down ordering people what to do, but see the government as a partner. See us as people who want to help, who want to give support. And I think we are doing our best to make sure that the image of the government is like that. It is no longer, okay, it's untouchable, no longer an office. We're working together because we have a common purpose. It's all about the country, it's all about the people. So I think we have to leverage on each other's strengths, and it's all about maximizing and capitalizing on what we have. So I think just go back to the question of platforms and supporting. We admit we have to reflect and see how much impact has the government actually done in giving these platforms. Are we giving enough impact? Are we helping enough? So these are the questions that we're asking, and we need these answers. So we need people to tell us whether we are giving enough support, whether we are doing enough. So I think the first step is for the government to have a good picture, so we're able to know where to support and how to support. So I think that's my response to the question. But thank you very much. Okay. Anyone?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Safwan Mohammed. I like to think of myself as an active member of the creative industry here in Brunei. So basically, my question is more or less along the lines of, you guys mentioned about finding opportunities and upscaling yourselves and taking on that opportunity. But what if there's not enough infrastructure for us youth who have skills that we can potentially sell overseas, but doesn't have the platform to do so? I say this because I myself am a filmmaker, as well as a performer, but I'd like to try, have the opportunity to try and make money off of any films that I have online. YouTube is able to do this, but in Brunei, we don't have the opportunity because of this thing called YouTube. Did I break the mic? Okay, no. The YouTube partnership program. Every country has this. A lot of countries have this, but several countries do not. Singapore has it, Malaysia has it, Indonesia has it, but Brunei is one of the few countries who do not. 120 countries have this partnership program available. So what can we do, working with the government, perhaps, in order to have access to all these platforms? Because right now, our main market is targeted at locals, right? So like Bench Lab, I don't know if you guys do any workshops that cater to overseas participants, but I know the majority of it is in Brunei. So yeah, that's my question. How can we have access?
Thank you so much for the question. I think from my experience as the matcher between skilled instructors and also curious learners, we've gotten that kind of question. So what's next after I learn this particular skill? And this is really true, especially for the creative industries. Thank you for bringing that topic up, because this is something that I myself am also very passionate about as a creative individual. It seems to me that we're lacking an enabler. And thank you so much as well, because you raised the issue about needing to build partnership It's all about building collaboration from now on. We can no longer work from top down, but actually, now we need to consider bottom up. So at the grassroots levels, what are we doing? So I feel that this is one example of how we are taking down the barrier. I think communication is one of the key points here. We need to communicate more. Perhaps on your side, from the government perspective, make it clear to the youth out here, what exactly are you working on? Is there any avenues for them who are potentially, for example, very interested in fashion designing, has taken courses on Dutch Lab or any online courses out there? And they're asking, what's next? The only career that one may be able to think about is to become a fashion designing instructor at one of the local schools. But other than that, should I start a business? I don't have any business skills, one may say. So what exactly can you provide in terms of support? Would it be, you said that funding. I think funding is very key. Perhaps, can we bring in mentorship to the right individuals? So I'm saying, maybe we don't have to just look inward in our countries. Perhaps we can bring in outside to get them to the right membership. How is it that we can enable our industries to mature at a faster rate? Clearly, fashion industries is only one of them. We have a lot of areas to work on. So I guess I would like to, again, emphasize the importance of communication. It goes both ways. Government can't be the only one asking. I feel that all youth, especially the participants here, should be encouraged to speak up and share what are your opinions on how they can enable you to take your skill, whatever you are very good at, and take it outside if you need to.
Thank you very much for I think I look late right now. Before we move on to it, let's move on to the third question in regards to the, because we need to tie up our discussion again with the theme of our Youth Townhall again. In order to unlock the third question for so to speak today, in order to unlock the power of young people, we need to identify and understand what are the underlying challenges faced by our youth from realizing the potential in youth. Okay, we need to actually outline those challenges in the youth. Without identifying those challenges, how can we solve it? Yeah. I think we can invite Yusuf to actually share his views on it, and then we can move further.
Thanks, Doctor. I have very strong views about this. How do we unlock the youth potential in Brunei? Now, I see the frustration of my corporate life, my daily job, in grooming people with the relevant skills. Now, I honestly think, in terms of technical skills, in terms of ability, Bruneians are one of the smartest in the world, and I don't hold back on that. My first year in university, I went to Australia. My lecture halls were 95% locals, Australians. I felt very small, felt very intimidated. But as the years went, I realized that I can actually contribute to group work. I actually know something. Right? I had the technical skills, and I built up the communication skills, I built up the courage. Now, I think in terms of how do we realize our potential is just courage. Believe in yourself. Be ready to make mistakes. I'm a firm believer in mistakes, not a firm believer of repeating mistakes, but the ability to learn from that. Especially now, guys. I mean, we have fields, we have domains within fields that do not exist even 2-3 years ago. So how do we learn? My father-in-law is an accountant, and he's joking with me. He's retired now, and he said that 30 years ago when he went to university, the basics are still the same. Yeah. 20 years ago, the internet wasn't there. just to put it into perspective. Now, I don't want to touch too much on technology per se as a field, but this is consistent across different industries, different fields, whether it be oil and gas, whether it be education, whether it be the government. Now, I watched this video about a prominent statesman who once said, and I won't name the person, who once said that the role of, and I'm paraphrasing, the role of leaders and governments and organizations is to create equal opportunity for everyone. And that does not mean equal results. The moment you give equal results to everyone, you're done. Because everyone will give minimum effort and just forget about the rest. Now, when you give equal opportunity for everyone, whether it be access to infrastructure, access to education, mentorship, monetary access, it is up to you as individuals to stand up, to find resources, to collaborate, to take your own initiative, to stand up and differentiate yourselves amongst others. The challenge that we have now as locals and the youth of Brunei is that we're not competing against the Brunei market. In the era of globalization, we're competing against the world, whether it be outside in or inside out. What I mean by that is either there will be foreign direct investment coming in, or in the film industry, for example, we sell our products or sell our services to other countries. Southeast Asia, for example, is one of the fastest growing regions in the world. And we can't see it as Brunei per se. We have to look at the region now as a collective group of people. Now, again, speak up and be ready to fall down. I started off doing an economics course in university, changed it twice, and I got a job, changed my focus again. I'm still changing now, I'm learning new things every day. Every single day, I'm learning something new today, thanks to all of you. And again, believe in yourself. You guys are, everyone here is very smart, I really believe in that. And sell yourselves. You know what the surprising thing is sometimes is that when you go to platforms like, and really good platforms by the way, like the KBS platforms as well, right? As investors, as people looking for ideas, sometimes they are actually finding it really hard to listen to people pitching their ideas. So there's not enough ideas because people are just not speaking up. People really want to listen. People really want to invest. People really want to help. And please do believe that. Right? And once there is a good idea, people jump on it. Trust me. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So,
Skandar, will we pass the mic to participants? Or do you have anything you want to? Yeah. I think we want to pass the mic to participants in the room before we go to questions in Slido.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll start first. I have this curiosity when it comes to Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Fatin. Yeah, I'm from YPN. In the spirit of speaking up and also the topic that we have this morning about meeting national aspiration, I'm wondering how many of us here actually understand what is the national aspiration for Belia, especially. What is the national aspiration for Belia here? So you understand? Maybe Afimi understands, I guess. Anyone else? Yeah? So, because if we think about it, right, the reality is Wawasan 20, oh, there's a few more. Wawasan 2035 is only 15 years away. And do we even know what that means for us, Belia? because it feels like it's an insurmountable goal to reach. We don't even know what we need to do to achieve it, right? And if we look at our employment opportunities here as well, I personally feel as Belia, I started work about 10 years ago, no, 14. I personally feel that we kind of have a late head start in our life, especially as now our young people are starting jobs quite late, 26, 27. If they're lucky, they get ready. If they're lucky, they get a full-time job. Second best, ready, I guess. And then third best, waiting for applying to anything that you can get, which may not be at in the same field of interest that you're in or your qualification. So I'm wondering, against all this backdrop, what is it that young people, I guess, should be thinking about at this stage to be, I guess, one, playing a role to support the national aspiration, but at the same time supporting ourselves as well to, I guess, grow and have a fulfilling life, just like our parents did. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Abis?
Yeah, Abis.
Okay. So I think we can give the mic to
Can you back here?
yeah, answer that last week.
She has but
The mic is here.
yeah.
Maybe
Maybe after five.
we go on it, huh?
Yeah. Go ahead.
You want her to answer?
I'll just respond to what Martin said up on translation. I think the simple response to that is that we are developing a national youth policy at the moment. So we are waiting for it to come down. So that will be, hopefully that will be the baseline for what the nation expects, or not expect, but what the nation aspires for our youths to be. So first and foremost is the national youth policy. Inshallah, we are hoping that it will come along shortly and will be published, inshallah, this year. So I think that will be very clear. But I think before this national youth policy, I think it's just all about, because at the end of the day, as I said before, when we really think about it logically, we all want the same thing. We all want the best for our youths, for them to have a fulfilling future. And when we go back to Laws of 2035, the ownership is people who live then. The ownership is for people who make decisions then, which are people who are considered young people now, who will be in their prime in 2035, in 15 years' time. So the work has to start now, as Fatih rightly said. It's all about the timing of when things start, right? So I think when we look back just this year, alhamdulillah, for example, we have the climate change policy that was done with the involvement of youths, and then we also have the national youth policy itself. We had consultations with youth leaders, with youths themselves from many levels. So I think we are going in a direction where we're trying to involve youth. So I think the simple answer is, other than the national youth policy, inshallah, we should have a list of what the aspiration is all about, how we can involve youth in the future. I think it's just all about, as I said before, collaboration. All about putting people together, connecting people. Government no longer as being the atas, government as being an equal partner. So I think that will be my response. It's just all about collaboration, all about we want the same thing. We want the best for the youth, the best for the people who are here now, so they can fulfill their future. All about ownership in the future. Sure.
Thank you very much, Khalid. Where do you have
I think, thank you again for the speaker has shared a broad variety of opinions. I'm going to have the question in mind is the fact that we're talking about the future readiness or future ready youth, or what do we aspire to in the future? Look at it in that way. Khalid Pamela raised a very good point about resilience. There are other aspects of building readiness in terms of tenacity, in terms of accepting failure and learning from it. So, and all of that is actually driven by a competitive environment. Unfortunately, we are lacking in competitive environment across all strata, from the educational side, even up to our, I'm not going to eat the mic. I think that is sort of lacking. Obviously, we have the right ministry in terms of structured competition in certain elements, but I think that competitiveness needs to come forward a little bit better. I think that competitive nature of structured competitive events is something that really builds on what you're trying to achieve in terms of resilience. Because I think if you look at our education system, not that there's anything wrong with it in its rollout, but by not aspiring to be 1 to 10 or whatever. I mean, that was my generation. But that drives you to want to do better. Yes, there are other schools of thought that say, well, people have to be, we're trying to create better or more level. But sometimes you need a little bit of, I guess, cutthroat competition to actually bring up the best in people. So I think that's something I hope that within the government that's actually taken a little bit more seriously, in the sense that having organized competition, doesn't matter what field. I mean, sports is a natural thing, but there's other ways to do it. That would actually allow and give better tools to young people, I feel, in order to face the headwinds. I think nobody expected 2020 to be crazy. How can you say that, if you asked us 10 years ago, would you have been ready for this? I think that let's look at that, because that's something we can control. Right? If we can control that format. And I was actually going to go back to what Ms. Wandi's point just now, as the fact that you accept what comes as it comes, but it doesn't stop you to build towards what you want. So I think that these are some things that we should take into account. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Waibi.
It's getting to get warmer now on Slido, but before we go back to Slido, perhaps Omar would like to,
One more question from the side.
Yeah, Omar, is son?
You tell me if I need to speak now.
Yes, you do.
My name is Lawan. I'm from the BS region in the UK and higher. I have one simple question, not so much a question. I mean, it's a simple suggestion, not so much a question. For BSU, at our disposal, we have 800 members. And some of them are the most brilliant students. And these students vary from undergraduates, masters, PhD candidates. And what I suggest is we need to educate these, not only in Brunei, but also those studying in the UK, Malaysia, Australia, and Egypt, all around the globe. And how can we achieve that? Perhaps we need a platform that's openly accessible to those students that are not in Brunei. For example, if there was no COVID and there was no pandemic, we wouldn't be here. All of us wouldn't be here. Yes, we do this. We would already be in the UK, and we wouldn't have access to this platform we wouldn't be speaking today. And having an Instagram page or a Twitter account, or maybe even a Facebook, but I don't know if we use Facebook still, to educate the youth on the national youth policy or the national aspirations. Because I asked a lot of my members, some of the leaders, do you guys know about the national youth policy? 20% say yes, the other 80% say no. So how can we generate change? How can we create change without knowing how to generate change? I think we should start from the basics, educating the youth through simple words, through something else through accessible platforms, as simple as Instagram. So I think yes, you were open to collaborating with anyone. With KKBS, we want to create this platform for students outside of the room. So that's the suggestion. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. One more question. And we have two actually. I'm sorry, I mean, in terms of I don't have access to Shafasar, I'm sorry. Okay. So because our colleagues from the online media article, they want to hear, and then Slido needs to keep popping up a lot of
questions. Okay? So yeah, a lot of things happening. Panas sudah get it, right? Silakan.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is Sasha. I'm administrator and creative lead for the Brunei Writers and Young Journal, but I'm also a job seeker. So my question is, when you were talking about learners' mindset and resilience, and stepping into a new zone without knowing nothing, how about companies who are already expecting 2 to 3 years of work experience for an entry-level job? The company is job seekers who just got out of university to work towards those expectations. Thank you.
Okay, let's collect some of the questions that we got. First of all, we missed a lot of things. Right? So I'm so excited.
Do we want to continue collecting? One more or?
Yes, we'll
One
just
more.
continue collecting.
One more.
Right? The last question for this and the partner. Right.
Hi, my name is Insan. I'm CEO of a storytelling company in Brunei, Productions. I'm an actor, director, scriptwriter. So my ultimate question would be this, because this word has been thrown around in the creative industry, in talks and forums with the government, and today as well. Yeah. So I just want to know what is your definition from the floor as well. Your definition, your understanding of the word collaboration. Because this word has been thrown around so many times, so very frequently in talks and forums, but I don't know if everyone has the same mindset or the same page, of the definition of collaboration. And I think knowing a set definition for collaboration will help everyone to, be on the same page.
Yeah, we're done. Please.
Okay, great then. Thank you very much for all the questions. I think the first one was like for the definition of collaboration. Maybe you can comment on that.
Thank you. Sasha was it that asked the question just now? I know you were looking at me, so I said, okay, this question is for me. When I said learner's mindset, be careful not to lick the microphone. So, when I said learner's mindset, that's the point phrase that we use in our organization, and other organizations might use it differently. But if I were to just put it in the layman's term, it's basically positive thinking. It's basically continuously looking for edges for you to actually continue to step forward, one step ahead of the game, so to speak. That's what it is. And we use it very frequently in safety organizations as well. We said learner's mindset is very critical. You learn from your mistakes, that you learn from past and present, in order to make the future, so to speak. And then you point and you can connect it to graduates without having experience, and how do you go about getting that opportunity to get jobs, yeah? Am I right in that? Okay, so yes, absolutely, today's world is kind of very challenging for the 6,000 graduates that come out every year in Brunei to get jobs, because there's only so much opportunity that organizations are offering. So if you look at Brunei Short Joint Venture Company, we do have a target to support the Watson 2035, in the sense that every year for the past 5 years to the next 5 years, at least we will be actually opening job opportunities for at least 50 graduates a year. But that doesn't mean that we don't go hiring as well. We do. So we do actually work with Job Center Brunei to actually look at if there are potential individuals who are in that internship with the IRD. And we continuously work with the Manpower Council. What we do is actually our members of our staff are actually sitting as chairing the manpower, what they call steering committee. They look at opportunity, how we can actually increase this job opportunity. And the other thing is, in our space, we only have 4,000 positions in the company. However, in our contractor workspace, we have more than 20,000 jobs. And those jobs are maybe about 65% occupied by local, which means there's still 30% or 35% that locals can continue to aspire to get in that space. And we continue trying to support the contractor workspace to expand their localization programs. And under the Ministry of Energy, we're also very lucky as Bruneians because they've actually passed a legislative law about Brunaization directives. And there are 9 KPIs. So anybody knows about it in the room? Okay. So I get a bit dispirited, but I will try to motivate you. So it's all about how do we reduce unemployment in Brunei. It's all about making sure every individual organization in Brunei reach 90% of localization content. Not just on average, like if you have 100 staff, 90 has to be local. No. They want it to be very specific, level 1, level 2, level 3, up to level 6. So every level of the organization, they must get to 90% of localization. Now that is a very tough goal. How many companies can get a localized executive director, for example? That's level 1. Then you go to the level 2, which are the directors that supports that. And so it goes on and on. So Brunei Shell Petroleum at the moment is about 87%. We're 3% away from that directive. And we believe the next 3 years we'll be able to get there. We have had local MDs being quite, but it doesn't come easy. We have to do a lot of investment in this space. R&D is something that we really support. So I know there's probably some teething problems, whatever, but do not lose faith in it. You can make it work. So I always believe that we ourselves are the one who actually lay down the glass ceiling for ourselves. We cannot say what I can do, what I can't do. Try breaking that glass ceiling. And just say to yourself, I can do anything, and see what goes with the goal, you know? Like I said, sometimes when we offer scholarship to our locals who are just ready to go to the UK or Australia, some have this mindset, I want to be an electronic engineer. I want to be with safety and so on and so forth. But the agility to adapt to what is available out there is very critical. So we have like 33 scholarships this year, for example, and that scholarship is predetermined by our manpower planning, the demand. So it may not actually be equivalent to what you want to do. So you have to assess yourself. If you're one of the top students and you're given the opportunity, what would you do? Would you stick with your principal wanting to do A? Would you take this opportunity that offer you a job? What would you believe if I say today? We just completed our selection last month. There were like 10% of all you who actually rejected the opportunity. Offered job in their hand when they graduate, because the scholarship in base fee, basically you graduate between 2 and above, you get a job. That's it. You don't have to look for a job anymore. And 10% of those people actually rejected this opportunity just because they feel it's not something they want to do. Now, this is where I talk about encourages to take the risk to switch over. I changed my career 3 times in the 37 years I've been working. I started in the technical and I now end up in the HR. But it's a calculated risk, informed decision making. So that's what I'm doing. Yeah?
All right, thank you very much. Just a quick note for me as well now. Very valid question from you. I've been a hiring manager many times and in my previous job, current job as well. To be honest with you, there's been plenty of times where the position might call for 2 years of experience and I hired a fresh grad. Many times. Now it's a case-to-case basis, right? Where as companies, again, I'm a believer in the competitive market. YB mentioned earlier, competitive nature, competitive environment, the free market. As an organization, we would want to hire the best talents, and at times, to be honest, that might mean increasing the entry or job requirements. But then again, that's where the assessment comes in, whether it be via interview, via psychological tests, via technical tests, where we assess the individual whether he or she is fit for the job. And to be honest with you, once you enter into that interview room, all your qualification, all your experience goes into the bin. It's how you present yourself. It's how you make a case to yourself. And yes, your experience and your technical expertise might help in presenting yourself. It might help in getting you that interview. So there's no real one answer, right? Yes, internships do help. Getting the degree might help. Getting the degree from a fancy university might help. But I can tell you the mix of employees, at least that I've hired, is a true combination of local graduates, international graduates, with or without internships, and your years of experience or the degree or qualification level that you have is not a linear indicator of one's true ability to perform a or any job. If that makes sense. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I think we will
Actually,
invite
sure.
actually
I should
to
share.
have the definition of collaboration. More participation.
Or anything you might want to add as well.
Yeah, maybe I can just briefly touch on what's just been discussed. So as someone who has been on the opposite end of the hiring process quite recently, I think what's just been said is 100% accurate. In my experience, companies are kind of faking it a bit when they put down their job requirements. They're often describing their ideal candidate. Like my perfect employee for this spot would have like 4 degrees from Oxbridge, 500 years of experience, would have already run 10 million. It just sounds incredibly intimidating. But that's actually not often what they're looking for in reality. I know this because I got a job offer from Facebook out of university without having done anything relevant in that field. I did law in the UK, right? And when I looked at the job requirement online, it said must have government regulatory experience. Must. It's like number 2 on the list. But they didn't seem to really care. They were just speak to them. So I think don't get intimidated by that, because I was. On this subject about risk taking, I work in foreign affairs. I was not supposed to work in foreign affairs. I'm not sure I'm undermining my job right now, but when I went on the government website to choose my scholarship, there's this drop-down list of options. I just clicked on the wrong one. I clicked on the wrong option. I wanted to go for a totally separate, different scholarship. Clicked on the foreign affairs. I found out about my mistake during the scholarship interview. In front of 11 people, the chairman of the board, very senior, intimidating looking guy, looked at me and he sort of growled. So, why did you choose the MFA scholarship? It's a very difficult. You lose lots of good people who go there and quit the government. At that exact second, I realized, oh, I made a terrible mistake. But you know, I had two choices. One option is to go, oh no, I think there might be a mistake in the form. I think I'm actually going for a different scheme, right? What I actually did, this is a split-second decision, not necessarily the calculated risk we're talking about. But I thought, you know, I get to travel, sounds kind of fun. What I said at that moment was, of course it's challenging. That's really why I wanted to go for this. You know? And I think sometimes, and honestly, I'm loving the job as it is right now. My posting here is great. But so I think sometimes it means grasping at these crazy opportunities which fall into your lap out of nowhere and say, you know, heck, who cares if it goes wrong? Okay, so to the question on I think what collaboration is. I think that there are like broadly 3 different models, right, of how you can work with someone, whether it's a government or it's another organization or it's a friend. I think one is the sort of command model, right? It's how governments used to work in the past. We tell you what's going to happen, you will deal with it because we are the government. Right? This is the Lee Kuan Yew model in Singapore. We don't do that so much nowadays because the governing party will do for its votes. Huh? Am I supposed to say that as a diplomat? I say it so it's up there at your risk. Yeah. The second model is what we call the consultation model, where you tell someone, I have all the power, I make the final say, but you know, sure, you can tell me what you want, what you want, we have the final say. But you know, it's nice to hear from you as well. And that's where I think most governments in the world, no matter what they say, really are. I think the third model is co-creation, where you are working together to actually create the thing. So you're not working, the government is not working with youth to get their views on issues and then implement a policy based on their views and what they want. But the youth themselves are writing the policy. They are dotting the I's and crossing the T's. And the government takes the risk that because youth are less experienced, maybe they don't know all of these trade-offs, some things will go wrong.
And that is just a cost which you will have to take. And I think that is, well, I cannot speak for what Brunei is doing, but in Singapore, at least, we are trying very, very hard to move it. It's difficult. Because imagine you're a perm sector of the industry, and then the youth that come up with this policy, which will probably fail, cost a lot of money. You say, no, 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 let's do it. This is what co-creation is. Take that risk. Are we at that level of trust and risk taking where we can do that? Any government in the world is going to be terrified. And I say this as a government worker. One last small point. I think there's a question about how we can educate people about government schemes, like these youth policies.
That's yours.
Again, I say this as a government worker. My experience is that, especially among young people, government is not that sexy or interesting of a topic. Right? Very few people will come up to you and say, my passion in life is this government green paper, this government document. What I want to do is work towards that. Right? People actually have much more practical dreams. I want to have a stable job, a good family, I want to contribute to my community, I want to be a useful citizen, right? Or I just want the admiration of my peers. So the trick is, instead of trying to ask me, persuading people that government is the right policy, how do you make people have the right values and aspirations so that in pursuing those, they end up doing what the government policy tries to achieve?
All right, thank you very much.
Sorry, I'm trying to just add on the collaboration piece. I want to hear something interesting for industry. In the organization that I work in, collaboration is something slightly different from what is discussed. So collaboration means having the skill to be able to influence those who are not directly under your authority. Different, right? Totally different from the public perspective. This is the private shell version of it. And this is an element that all of us who work in Brunei Shell or Brunei Shell Company knows very well. It's one of the characteristics of our leadership. So it's called collaboration. So people find it very confusing because, oh, I thought collaboration is about working together to get to a common agenda and everything. Yes, indeed, but they have to make it interesting. They have to make it difficult, Shell. So they said, yes, you work with others that's not directly under your authority. So it makes it very interesting. You have influencing skill, not manipulative, but influencing skill. So you actually build up that power where you actually can swing the pendulum to where you want it to get to in a community. So just give me a bit of spin to it.
Thank you. Thank you, Sana, for the question. I think it's a great question. It's going to echo what Ashish talked about. I think the Brunei government also doing the same thing. I think we are at the stage where we are actually trying to figure out how best to collaborate, because this is a new field. Because we have to admit, we don't know. We don't really know how. So we only trying, because if we just look back this 5 years ago, creative industry, we don't really know what that's all about, right? Now where we are, where we're now, is a performer. We have so many performers, so many people in this field. It's growing, it's booming, and it's still flourishing now. So I think we have to admit as the government, I think the reason why it's so hard to co-create is because we don't know. We don't really know on our behalf. And as Ashish said, no one will wake up one day and say, oh yeah, sure, my passion is this paper. My passion is this government paper. No one will say that. But I think, just adding on to what has been said, it's about how do people want to work with you, right? So it's about persuading. So I think on our part, the government's part, it's how to make ourselves present ourselves as a credible partner. How do we also present ourselves as approachable? And then we are also here to learn. So because creative industry and many other industries is still quite new to us, we also here to learn as well. That's why it's so important for us. This forum is a good example. It's a government given platform. It's for us to really listen and to really think through. Okay, so this is what people are actually saying. This is something we're still trying to figure out. The actual voices on the ground. How can we actually work it out? So inshallah we'll get there one day.
Thank you very much, Farid. I like the idea of having this discussion. It's not just scripted, having this discussion, but it rotates along the way that what the youth wants, especially not just what we found, but at the same time maybe getting advice from our speakers for today. I like the idea of unemployment issue of employment in Brunei. How can you and the youth help give solution at the same time? Result
some of the governments, like private sectors, have not only see it from our perspective, but not from the youth and also the challenges that you're actually facing at the moment. For example, like me, I'm actually a youth worker, but my background is completely in art, from my degree, my master, and my PhD. So graduates, right? And my passion is actually in drawings. But now I have to adapt to the new sort of challenge, which is working with youth, right? To speak it long on it, right? But I just give one example here, living proof that you have to adapt to new things. But when I started working with the ministry, I've utilized my capacity and also my knowledge in the art field to connect the dots in the creative industry instead of macam chess today. You take this one part and then put it in the ministry basket, and then this is how you work. Okay, see the harmony inside it. Okay, I do understand about the words collaboration and it's what can be useful. Then now I do like the idea of having this discussion and then define what is it that I know this word is. Right? Okay. We have a few questions from the
Yeah. So, yeah. Okay. Thank you. Going back to Slido, we have some thought-provoking questions from Belia Brunei. So, so Belia Brunei is asking, so how do we youth, not youth perhaps here, how do we realign the education and upskilling curriculum to be in sync, for the youth to be future ready, especially to support the smart city nation? And then after aligning the curriculums, how do we realign the jobs available in Brunei, the public, private GLCs, to create a more enabling, future-ready landscape? And to add one more, a digital economy master plan 2025. Also to get Brunei in sync with the progression of the global required skills, so as forecasted by the World Economic Forum.
I think it's going to help us. This one is a different question.
Can you go to it? Belia Brunei, one.
We need to see. So at least
the first one, we talked about education and upskilling curriculums.
The whole of the slide.
Belia Brunei.
Okay, this one? Yeah. Very good question. Again, I touched upon it lightly earlier about my thoughts on the education system. Again, the challenge of the education system with regards to technology and getting us ready for the future, whatever the future might be, 3, 5, 10, 20 years, is that again, it's if you enter university today, are your skills relevant in 3, 4 years' time? I'm not too sure. As an example, in cybersecurity, traditionally it was always a subdomain called network security. But cybersecurity right now is more than that, way more than that. I'd like to give you an illustration as well. So for example, if you enter into university, you might be a law graduate or you might be an IT graduate, per se. What differentiates you between yourself and 6,000 other graduates? You can change the education system, that's one thing, but we have to get used to this model that education again is lifelong learning. It goes beyond the 4 walls of university. I still feel that I learned more outside of university when I was attending university in ECAs, clubs, BS unions, by just interacting with people, learning through mistakes, trial and error, projects. It will be extremely hard to just revamp the curriculum. I'll tell you that. I think many countries, for example, universities, what they're trying to do is do more collaboration with the industry, which I think is a very good idea. So it gives you a feel of what the industry really requires, what kind of skills do they require. And I think that needs to continue in that path. I think universities should consider, instead of 25% of the degree is industry collaboration, maybe put it up to 30-40%, 5 semesters, 4 semesters, 3 semesters instead of 2, which I think that would be a step in the right direction, personally. In terms of the flip side, aligning jobs, To be honest with you, I don't think you can align jobs. I think that will come into shape both, and jobs are made through the need of jobs, right? So you can't just say, I'm going to create 10,000 data analyst jobs, I'm going to create 10,000 IT jobs. Where are you going to place them? There is actually a lot of, I was speaking to a person from a big employer in Brunei, increasingly big employer in Brunei. And then this person was saying, and this is only this week, this person was saying that he was in need of, I think, 50 or 100 temporary 1-year short-term manpower requirements in the engineering and IT field. But what's interesting is we have 5,000, I don't know how many thousand IT graduates out there. But what they were looking for are soft skills. The ability to share, collaborate, the ability to launch initiatives, the ability to co-create. To be more specific, so for example, I'm in the IT field, and you're like, well, why does he need to collaborate? All he does is fix his computer, right? No. So a very good example of the collaboration that is needed is, we work with marketing departments to raise awareness about cybersecurity. We work with government agencies. We work with government agencies overseas as well before to do training, to learn from them, to launch projects. We work with, I'm just thinking, we work with a lot of, we worked with DARE before, to look at the startup community, to look at solutions, to look at ideas that are on the ground that can benefit the technology agenda in organizations. None of that was in my JD. None of that was in my job description. I was in fixed computers, right? But that's the extent at which one is required to step out of his or her comfort zone in this day and age. You don't learn that in university. You learn that outside university. I think I'll pass it over to I think my fellow speakers here to, I think, touch upon the digital master plan.
I just want to add on one point because I happen to be aware of work in progress that's currently being done by Manpower Planning and Development Council. They're working very closely with the investment authorities and all, and they have these what they call a 5-year look ahead in terms of manpower prediction. Now, if the organization or industries in Brunei do a good job in predicting the number of vacancies and what type of jobs they're going to be in the next 5 years, then the intent was for the education MOE to send people on scholarship in the right space. And I used to sit in the scholarship committees of the government, and I remember the first time they tried to align this to the industry requirement, and it actually worked. And that was like 4 years ago, and I saw these individuals who come back and they actually have a job match for them. But that means that the traditional wish list of scholarship from the government has diminished, because now it's very focused scholarship. That's why you notice that you can't just go whatever you want anymore. And it's very, very focused on what are the potential jobs that are going to be available in Brunei when you graduate. And this is work in progress. And I'm really hopeful that they continue to do this. I'm looking ahead, and all the organizations are very honest in giving their input in the spreadsheet, the manpower master plan, if they call it, that it would actually give a little bit of fresh air or breath for the people who are looking for jobs. It's working, but it's not enough. We should do more of it. Just to add.
Okay, I think along the line of realigning skills and education. So from my experience of my 6 years in 2 universities in the US, I feel that there's a striking difference between what we practice here in education and abroad. One is there's a safe space for people to actually not just learn skill, but also to practice skills. So like we said earlier on, be okay to fail and learn from it. And I think that's probably one of the areas that we can focus, not just entrepreneurship. I think the local universities highlights a lot about preparing youth to become more entrepreneurial. But perhaps we can also focus on one of the examples that I mentioned earlier, fashion design. We don't have a platform for that. A lot of the art industries, filmmaking, storytelling, I think there's no platform where we feel that we can safely practice and get support from maybe government, other private sectors. And from the perspective of Bench Lab, we try to create this accessibility to our best effort. We try to get and connect the public, the local youth especially, to skilled people. We have local talents. We try to bring talents from abroad. Now that we are also virtual, we also conduct online courses. We try to bring those skills into our local youth communities. But again, how do we continue to practice that? We can't just end at that. I think that's something that the government and platforms like BenchLab can collaborate on. For example, based on my experience of seeing how similar platforms like BenchLab is run in other countries, Indonesia or Singapore. For Singapore, I've seen how the education, some schools, high schools actually, create makerspace or innovation lab. This is where youth can actually practice without a lot of risk actually. Now they can safely practice that, and it builds confidence. We need that courage. The only way to build courage is actually to let them safely practice without losing much. And then the second point is the creative hubs. I see in Jakarta, Bandung, the government actually support the idea of having a creative hub. The first floor is for actors, theaters. The second floor is all about textile fashion. So having this centralized platform where youth can actually learn and continuously practice and polish their skills, I think that's what we're lacking here. As an advocate for continuous learning, I feel that from the professional perspective, that is something that I truly wish we can work alongside other partners.
Thank you very much. Just on the question of upskilling and reskilling platforms. I think I'm going to share one. Since last year, KKBS has been, I think, working towards making PPP.
Louder, skip, please.
Pusat Mulia Youth Development Center into this kind of platform. So I think our way forward is to also include vulnerable youths, so vulnerable groups, so people who are disadvantaged from early on. So right now we have short courses going on there, and we are looking into small industries like jahitan, sewing classes, baking classes, and then more recently barber shop. So I think we're looking into this kind of, I wouldn't say niche, but these areas where youths can, just train for a few months, 3-4 months, just to get their school going, and then they can go on the platform. So I think we're also, and then after they finish, we got KKBS, our government, through KKBS, we also provide platforms for them to do the business, so for free. So for example, the barbecue shop, which is open, is for free. All they have to do is just run it. So I think this is the kind of thing where it's a result of us knowing where we are exactly. So I think that's why Youth Development Center is one of those platforms where, as Juan mentioned, is that kind of space where we can upskill. And I think it's just all about what's needed at the time. What's needed, these are the skills that's needed, and they have need at this platform. This is provided. Just go, just run with it. No need to linger on, for so long. So I think that's where we are at the moment. And inshallah, we're trying to expand this. We're trying to make this into more structured and looking into more areas. So I think that's what I can share. And thanks for participating.
Thank you very much, Fateh. We have, okay, all right then.
We have
The
about
final question, and even it is for the speakers, but I think it should go to, yes.
Yeah.
Under Wawasan 2035, I think some of us know what Wawasan 2035, a lot of us, well, all of us know what Wawasan 2035 are. But the content of that Wawasan, I think we have to revisit the individual how we define it. But
My question to all of you, kalau dapat ada seorang, ada orang, or every one of you wants to answer this, is under Wawasan 2035, one of its key foundation is highly linked to education and living standards. How can our youth contribute here? Maybe some of you wants to answer. How can you as a youth wants to contribute to Wawasan 2035? Anyone wants to answer? How can you contribute to achieve our Wawasan 2035?
But you have further response?
Macam kena panjang. Yeah.
Hi, Sandra said, and I'll just say, hi, my name is Dash. I'm a media broadcaster, founder of the Brunei Writers, but I was also part of the BNCCP that you just mentioned. I was one of the youths that were interned there, and I spent 4 months working on the climate change policy, which was very fun. It was a very interesting experience to be a part of. The question was how can youth aspire to help achieve the Wawasan 2035, right? Also, Assalamualaikum. Completely forgot that. Anyway. For me personally, I am a youth advocate. I advocate for the youth. I think despite everything, what's going on in not only Brunei, but in the world, that we have such resilience and strength right now. And so I think individually, personally, I like to see more of an entrepreneurial background growing in the digital economy, not only in Brunei's economy, but also emerging through other someone who is in the creative industry and someone who also has a law background and wants to explore that further out. But in general, I think the youths now have felt this, not necessarily a burden, but rather this incessant need to develop and see change, even if it is a very, very slow growth. It might take 15 more years, but I hope that in 2035, when my sisters are going to be where I am today, I hope that they see the significant change that we are doing right now, whether that is socially, fiscally, or politically.
Anyone else?
Yeah. Thank you very much for the answer.
This side, maybe perhaps after this. We're leaning towards this side.
Hello. Hello, my name is Hannah. So I think youth these days are just being too comfortable in a way that they don't manage their own expectation. Right? Right now, a lot of youth are expecting to get whatever they want and have everything fall to the left easily. Right? Just in case things don't happen, what they do, they just complain. Right? So if you see that there's no jobs available, right? Why don't you start your own business? Right? If there's a gap in the market and no one is there to offer a job and there's no solution for it, why don't we just do something about it? Yeah, that's really raise the expectation. Really be independent and don't hope too much for help.
Alright, thank you very much.
Hold on, do you guys agree with that?
No.
Are we agree on managing our expectations well?
I think it's for our discussion today, it's open to personal point of view, right? So we try to be as professional as we want to go. Make sure that we make sure that we respect other people's point of view, right?
Yeah.
So as the youth of the country, we are ready to accept and embrace positive feedback. And at the same time, we want to find out from people's point of view.
Just a quick 30 seconds here, Doctor. Just airing out thoughts here. I mean, we talk about resilience, we talk about capabilities to face the unknowns, but to make sure that we grow as a nation, be it Wawasan, be it finding a job, be it doing a business, be it government facilities, infrastructure, but the thing that we have to ask ourselves is, are we ready to ask these tough questions? Are we ready to face these tough questions? We can only move, we can only grow when we face adversity, kesusahan, kepayahan. So if we're not asking we can always ask the right questions, but we should ask also the tough questions. So if we're still having
opinions yang safe or just being on the safe side, we'll never grow as a nation. So again, macam contoh tadi Global mentioned tadi, the government facilities are still limited to sorry, not government facilities. The facilities, the platform are still limited to macam cuma ni. But kami yang di UK na kedengaran barang ni. So that goes back to us yang convenience, these facilitators. Tanya balik. So I think it's a good platform why we had does this face to face, but also online this evening. So again, everyone, I urge everybody to here, continue to ask these tough questions. You don't necessarily need to have an answer on the spot. That's where we have to do, again, from the word tadi yang kita tanya, collaborate together. It's not more about competing nowadays. It's more about collaboration. And again, to find, inshallah, the solution to these sort of questions.
All right, thank you very much. Anyone else? Okay.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Afiq from Student Association in UBE. So I think it's from the perspective of students in UBE, we often question ourselves as a student, university student, how do we actually effectively contribute to our nation aspiration, which is Wawasan 2035. I think we need more sort of like this kind of platform where the students can gather, not only university students, this includes the overseas students as well, where we can discuss intellectually, and then not only the results just to that point, but maybe we have a representative of the students to like say let's say the council to voice out or to amplify what the students want, because I'm aware that majority of the youth are mostly represented by the NGOs but not the students yet. And also maybe I might suggest as well on the technology area, like the discussion on technology, but maybe I would like to have a conversation with you on this. If we have Digital Economy Council and also maybe climate change policy something secretariat, why not we have like artificial intelligence secretariat or council that might push this field, especially for Brunei, to progress digitally, technologically, and also to encourage more developments on innovation or something, because I believe that Brunei is still lacking on investment in that field, and also we are still lacking in creating new ideas, innovation, and invention. So that's from me.
Thank you very much. Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Farhan. I'm a graphic designer, so maybe I would like to touch on two things, I believe. So the first one, perhaps on the creative side of things, perhaps the creative industry or the creatives in general could actually like instill certain values. I know values could be a very ambiguous thing, could be cultural values, could be moral values, things like that. But when you think about it, these guys actually have a platform in which they could actually inspire everyone who consumes the media. I mean, the internet is very accessible right now, and also the media is like at our fingertips. Perhaps through that, we can instill such values into the people, and also from getting people who have good values, we can have quality youth as well. So that's one thing that I wanted to touch. And the second thing, perhaps, I do notice that even though the youth have their own ideas on how to push things, because how are we going to push forward was in 2035? It's a very broad question. There's a lot of ways to approach as well, but the one thing that I could notice is that sometimes these ideas clash too much to the point it can be quite divisive. So I believe that youth could actually practice a more open mind to see things from each other's perspectives, because sometimes from these clashes and conflicts, we can actually look into what our shortcomings altogether as a community. So I believe we could have that as well. I think that's all for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think we have a little bit of time for that because we started around like
10 minutes.
10 minutes, okay? All right, then before we wrap up the whole thing, I just want to ask each speakers and your hopes and aspirations in the context of our discussion and meeting national aspiration. So let's start off with five. Thank you. I think what I can say, I think it's based on today's discussion. I think on behalf of the government, I think we deal with this saying, I think what Abdullah said before, it's all about educating. So I think we take this to account. So how, as the government, how to make sure that whatever information that what government is doing, whatever direction we're going for, is communicated properly, communicated in a way that's understandable. So I think we take it into account. But Alhamdulillah, I have to say the government is doing a lot in that. So I think, for example, Wawasan Council has launched the primary level, secondary level books on understanding Wawasan to ensure that students at that level will understand Wawasan. So I think there is a move towards there, and we do admit that, yeah, of course, we do have to educate the public that we do have to ensure that we know what we're doing. But in saying that, if I may just, if I may borrow from an author, I think he did say at the end of the day, when we're talking about big aspirations, the bigger picture, the question to ask ourselves, everyone to ask ourselves is, do you want to be or do you want to do? You want to be someone or do you want to do something? If you want to be someone, it's all about your own reputation, what you want to do, what your interests are. But if you want to do something, it's something beyond yourself. It's something that is much bigger. You see yourself as part of a bigger picture, you know, not just as a Brunei and all the people from the past and the future generation. So we see ourselves as, okay, we're linked to all generations. So I think that's the way to think about the aspirations in it. And I think it's going back to, we talk a lot about resilience, we talk a lot about competition. If I may borrow from another author, this one is a football coach, his name is Bill Walsh. At the end of the day, if we have something to aspire to, you don't just look into that. You don't, okay, for example, if you're a football team, you don't look into winning all the time, but you look into your standards performance. So how do you make sure your performance, you're doing the best in whatever that you do. So that's another mindset or another way of thinking to have. So whatever that you do, whatever that your effort is, am I doing the best right now? Am I giving it my all? And I think I have to say as well on behalf of the government, we must not forget MIB. So my Islam Raja must always be there. So we must always think about this in the background of all things. When we talk about aspiration, when we talk about where we want to go, what the government is trying to do, Malay Islam Raja will always be there. This is our identity, what links us to the past, what links us to the future. So whatever that we do is all about MIB. It's all about, as I said before, balancing a relentless drive to achieve whatever we want, our passions, with a discipline of what are the current realities right now. So it's all about realizing this and we are part of a bigger picture, not just in the present moment, but also the past, present, and the future. So I think that's where we are as Bruneians, that's our aspiration, that's what we want to see. And inshallah, as I said, national policy is coming, and then we'll do better in trying to educate in terms of our son. So I think that's all I have to share. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Faik. And now let's move on to.
Okay, it's quite sad, it's ending actually. I'm really enjoying myself here. But, you know, there's so much I wanted to say to you guys, but I guess in the 1 or 2 minutes that I'm given, I guess what I wanted to really say to you guys is big organization like us is always here to support you guys, whether you can see it directly or indirectly, you're always there. However, do not forget, you know, there's this really old metaphor that my mom can speak English, I need to speak English. My mom always remind me about, you know, this little thing that says that early bird gets the worm kind of thing. So if you really look into it, early bird gets the worm, not because you're awal, because you're berusaha. You're berusaha dan that's why you dapat ano. But of course, you're always a step ahead kan. Kalau yang burung lain itu masih tidur, ya bangun, of course you dapat the first one, right? Something like that. But that also brings me to the point about, you know, if you sit and wait for opportunities to knock on your door, do you think it will ever come? I'm not expecting an answer. But if you go and knock on the door to open the opportunities, likelihood is that's where you get to And my mom was telling me so, and I never forget this, Bahasa Melayu, but you know, two things I want to do, sort of like a biasa. Katanya, if you cannot get through the door, there's always the window. But at that time I don't understand, you know. But as I grew up, and then I suddenly realized that, oh, what my mom meant was, this is what I've been doing. Easy, the door is very easy. It's normal common sense. You want to get to the other side, you open the door. You never climb through the windows, only thieves will do that, right? But then again, you know, the window is smaller, so it takes a little bit more effort, more investment for you to get through. But at the end of the day, it's an aperture that you can get through to the other side as well. So don't just keep on looking for the doors. Look for the windows as well. Those are windows of opportunities that you need, okay? Don't forget about it. And the other thing that I want to remind you guys is about berpikir baik, bersangka baik. This is very important. For those who are Muslims in the room, you understand this. This is our religious teaching too. Because if you think perkara baik akan terlaku. It will happen. So this is about positive thinking, the power of positive thinking. Don't underestimate it. It's really, really good. So my mom said again, dalam bahasa Melayu, so I translated to English. She doesn't know how to speak English. So this is what it is translated to. The road to hell is paved with good intention. Hold that thought. Everybody, when they wake up in the day, step up from the bed, no one actually says, today I'm going to wreak havoc. Today I'm going to do bad things. Nothing, you know, everybody wants to do good. So you have to understand when someone says something, someone express something to you, be gracious enough to take that feedback. It's very, very important. People care for us. That's why they take the time to give feedback. Now, the youth who actually embraces feedback are the youth that actually improve in performance. Because that feedback, you know, it's a gift. Give money can, people don't give it to you, they don't know you. People don't give it to you, they don't care. Because it takes time to get the feedback. And you get gifts on your birthday, anniversaries, even when you graduate. So if you change your mindset, every time someone says something to you to express opinion or give feedback, embrace it. And believe me, you will move to a better space. That's what I have to say.
Thank you very much.
I'm very silent.
I guess from my side, I think I'm one of the very youngest youngster. I can share my experience from a perspective of university students. I didn't know what access to mentorship or internship. I wasn't raised with a background of parents who were well educated or so. Upon stepping into the US alone with 2 huge baggage, I knew I had to have someone. I did not have a single Bruneian friend. I knew I had to have someone. And I think this, you may be able to relate to this because mentorship is a lifetime effort. No matter where we are, be a student, an entry-level worker, or a senior leadership position. Mentorship is really important. I wasn't aware that universities would actually fund projects. That's something that I wasn't aware. I wasn't aware that university can fund you to travel abroad to do a research project. That's something beyond my expectation. So having the right kind of friends or network, just join, have the courage, like you said, have the courage, learn from someone. And I feel that I was humbled to see that I thought I have seen the best, but I haven't seen the best until I saw this group of people who studying, running some startups in the background, projects for the communities. I was wondering, how do you actually balance this? You know, it challenged me. It did not put me down. It challenged me because I know I come from kampung. You know, I felt like kampung girls are also US. You know, but I knew I had to do something about it, and the only way is learning, humbling myself down, and I know that I don't know enough. And that's my my perspective as a man. And I always say, I don't know a lot. I need to seek someone. And at every stage of our life, keep coming back to that question, who would be the right person to guide me along the way? I think that's all from me.
Thank you very much. So in close of some personal reflections, I think firstly I really relate almost painfully with what you just said about going overseas. So when I went overseas to study, you know, I remember the first day I dragged my luggage. My parents didn't help me. I dragged my luggage into my room. I put my luggage in the middle of my room. It's a very old
room 1600s in Cambridge, you know. There's no heating, it was terrible. And I remember I put my nuggets down and I looked at it and I thought, I have made such a terrible mistake in choosing to go overseas and study. Because I don't know anyone here. I don't know if I'm ever going to fit in. At that point in time, my mom had done stage colon cancer, just signed up, so it's okay. So it was a really crushing moment for me. So I think when I say at least that I know what it's like to feel really alone and that you really cannot deal with it, and that you're not sure of the choices you make in any sense at all, I really do feel it. Right now, of course, in hindsight, I look at myself at the moment and it's stupid. You enjoyed yourself and it was okay, right? But I think there'll be many points where having that uncertainty that's very natural. I think the second thing is that, from my personal experience, this is not something I guess civil servants are also supposed to say. I think it's better to ask for forgiveness and permission. It's better to do something, see how it goes, and if it goes wrong, you say, I'm sorry. Right?
Nobody's agreeing.
Because often if you ask for permission and you want to do everything by the book, nothing will happen in the first place. But it turns out if you do something not by the book and it all turned out well, you might be kind of okay with that. You don't ask so many questions. I guess my last reflection in terms of aspirations for the future is that I hope youth are taken seriously. I'm 28, so I put myself in this. So, you know, we are naive. We are kind of dumb some of the time.
Yes.
Right? We make errors. We are foolish. But I think that's because we don't have our values ground down by the daily grind of reality yet. I think that's incredibly important for any society to keep. I think if you look at how all societies have changed over time, the biggest source of change, almost every single society, has been young people. Right? People who now make up 41% of the world. So I just hope that we'll get to the point where people listen to us and take us seriously.
I'm always the last guy, so I stand between everyone and lunch right now. So, no pressure, I'll keep it short. Two things. Again, just wrapping up what my fellow speakers have said. But just to zoom into I think two qualities. I actually saw a question on that on Slido on emotional intelligence. And we talk about AI, artificial intelligence, but I think we should also speak about emotional intelligence, which is human aspect of things. And we can go on and on and on and on about this for 2 hours, but I think the question was, how do we improve, how do we coach ourselves regarding emotional intelligence? And there's no silver lining to it. There's no silver bullet, sorry. It's just training. Training and reading, interacting with people. There's no manual how to improve your emotional intelligence, right? Different people react differently. Different people do things differently. And how you adapt is also different. Different people are at different stages. And how do you measure emotional intelligence? But now, let me say this. The problem that I see, especially in technical fields, especially in engineering, IT fields, is that we are so drilled down to learn how to code, to learn how to do math, to learn how to do projections, that we forget the human side of things. When you go to the workplace, you hire a good engineer. You hire a software engineer. That software engineer or a fresh graduate will come to a point in his work career that he or she will have to present, will have to influence, will have to collaborate. With a very good technical background, you would have to sell your ideas in order to make a change. It's extremely important. I think if there's one skill to improve, it's, people say soft skills, but a large part of that is emotional intelligence. And it's never a module in university, isn't it? There's no class you can take. I'm going to take one module in emotional intelligence today, right? And again, there's none. There's a combination of things that we have to do. Get exposed. Be open. Stay open. And I don't need to elaborate on that. I think Juan has also elaborated very extensively on openness and change and adversity. Second point is hard work. I think hard work, straight, grit, resilience, hard work is very underrated in this day and age. And you go to Facebook, you go to Instagram, and people talk about work smart, don't work hard. You get inspired, yeah, that's perfect, you know. I should be more efficient, I don't need to put in the hours, and don't get me wrong, that's the right statement, but it's driving the wrong behaviors, guys. In order to work smart, you need to work hard first. In order to automate things, in order to know how to do things better, be more efficient, you have to put in the hours. You have to make mistakes. But there's no way that you're going to work smart. I'm going to spend 6 hours on something because I'm going to work smart. I'm going to ace the exam tomorrow because I'm working smart. I have 2 books open and I have a monitor. I'm going to listen. I'm going to crunch it in 2 hours. No problems, right? But in order to get to that level of aptitude, ability, capacity, you have to put in the hours. You have to make mistakes. There's no replacement for hard work. Grit, resilience, absolutely none. Okay? Just to give an example, in the space of people looking for jobs as well, my wife was a source of big inspiration to me as well. She did the degree, master's in neuroscience, did a PhD, and her life changed. She had a medical problem, had to drop out of her PhD. She's doing something completely different now. She's in the F&B industry. She has a few restaurants and something completely different. But again, with hard work, with the openness to change, you can make. You talked about jobs earlier, right? And yes, there is a lack of jobs right now. I don't agree or disagree with your statement. And simply opening up a business is not as simple as it sounds, right? If every Tom, Dick, and Harry opens a business in Brunei, it's a customer. It doesn't work in economic sense, right? So, but the underlying behavior is very important. Underlying concept is very important. Make something if this is right now in the industry, the marketing costs are nil. Social media. Brunei actually has the highest social media penetration in ASEAN. The highest in the world, is it? Yeah, in the world. There you go. I think the stats say that there's more than 1 mobile device per person in Brunei, which is insane. Yeah, number 1 on Instagram. So again, your marketing costs go down. So the barriers to entry to certain industries right now are very, very low. Hard work, research. I think that's about it. Thank you very much. So I think that's it for our session for today.
Yeah, before we close the session, perhaps we could just take a couple of minutes to hear from our participants, just some key takeaways. What? Okay, maybe a minute each. So I'll just invite 2 participants. We'll have one, Nazura.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Nazura. I'm a university student and I'll be starting my second year next week. First of all, I'd like to thank all the speakers for sharing your insight and experience with us. It was really nice to hear all the different advice and different perspectives on how we can propel our futures forward. I found that the mindset skills and building up a resilient mindset was essentially quite helpful. Because I'm a firm believer in if we decide to do something, only people stopping us is us, and that we should make use of the circumstances that are being put forward. And it's as you said that it's not as easy as it sounds, but it's about having the will to keep going forward, even if it looks tough. So thank you for giving us more insight on that.
Amira?
Yep.
Hello, I'm Amira. I'm from House Productions and Big Ground Project. One thing that stuck to me the most today was we have to learn from the past and the present, because somebody said history tends to repeat itself, but I thought about it, and yeah, I guess so, but the way history repeats itself is under the terms of the current time, and that's how we can be one step ahead, I guess. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. And G, would you like to say a word or two? A word or two?
Yeah.
Alright, thank you very much, guys, for today. To our speakers as well, really insightful, and also to all the questions on Slido, been monitoring that. like to agree to disagree on a lot of things that we've been shared, but then again, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, and we want to respect and be mindful of what everyone's sharing. So thank you everyone for being very open to what they're sharing. As we say, this is a safe space, this is non-judgmental, and we're all here to help one another grow and grow together, especially in youth sitting here in Brunei, which I'm very passionate about. Thank you for giving us, the youth, a lot of the feedback for us to grow and understand, and we also appreciate that you've been accepting our feedback, listening to us as well. And we hope that this communication channel will continue to expand and grow, and that we will continue to have this open communication between us, that we will continue to listen to one another and not just hear what's being said, but actually, listen and act upon it, and that we could grow together and, work together. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much for all our participants, especially for all our speakers. Now, here for this program, for the first session for the town hall for the first town hall for this year, and then we hope that all our speakers managed to give all to help you guys in terms of not just motivating you guys, but also giving you ways to actually solve problems, but at the same time, providing you with a platform. Just to share before we end this program today, I would like to inform that tomorrow the session will start at 9 a.m. until 11 a.m. The topic will rotate around NGOs and community youth leaders leading for national development. Okay, so that's it from us for today. And then on behalf of the Ministry of Youth and Sports, the Young Professional Network, and OBN, I would like to say thank you to all our colleagues from the universities, from the industries, from government agencies, and also the media who are willing to sacrifice your morning, Saturday morning. Okay, we'll do more. And then thank you very much to all our colleagues yang online today. Nanti mau bisa around. Okay lah, right? But thank you very much for joining us. And then that's it. If you have any further questions, we have the speakers ready to be bombarded. Alright then. Okay. Thank you very much, and have a nice weekend, everyone.
Alright, thank you so much to the speaker title for this session with the topic Meeting National Aspirations, Youth as Future Ready Agents of Change Today. And those of you at home, thank you for staying with us until now. We'll be here again tomorrow, both physically and virtually, with a different topic about NGOs and community youth leaders leading for national development. Tomorrow's lineup of speakers or mentors are Haji Muhammad Uthman Al-Hakim, CEO from Al-Hufaz, Nurul Hadina, Deputy President of Brunei Youth Council for Brunei and Kuala District, Muhammad Ashmir, Head of Operations Center for Community and Sukarela Umbria, Haji Abdul Mati Bogini, Timbalan Setia Usaha Agung, Brunei Youth Council, Muhammad Adil Shazmi, Pegawai Pira Sultan from the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport, and Charlotte Lim, co-founder and creative director for the K4PN. On behalf of the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sports, the Young Professionals Network Brunei, and the K4PN, we would like to apologize for any technical difficulties that you experienced, and we hope that we could iron it out tomorrow. This town hall is brought to you by the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sports in collaboration with the Young Professionals Network Brunei and the K4. If you want to know more about Young Professionals Network Brunei, you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Telegram channel on the same username as YPN Brunei. If you want to know more, one Nurul Nazira, founder of French Lab, is actually a one-year mentor as well. So if you want to be mentored by her, follow our social media channels. She will be opening up sessions in the future. Maybe in 2 weeks' time, we don't know. Okay? We also have specific Facebook group that focus more on our series like Leadership Weekend, Leadership Circle, Impact Dialogue, and Employability series. So join us. With that, and today's Youth Townhall Brunei, unlocking the power of young people with Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and hope everyone had a great morning.
Yeah, pictures.
My phone is not the best phone to take.